Super thought to start the day. And I always say, never confuse action and activity. Because activity is something that you do just, at times impromptu, but action is something that you think, you perceive, you plan, and then execute. And that's what we're going to be doing today, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Raman Banot, and let's lead into the first session today, which is Young Turks, a new sporting vision for a new India. And of course, this panel is flushed with new ideas, young blood, and a whole lot of energy. For this discussion, I'd like to call up on stage Hannah Muthoot, a very dynamic young leader. Can we have Hannah come up on stage, please? And a round of applause for her as well. A fourth-generation leader of the 130-year-old Muthoot Papachan Group. She serves as the director of Muthoot Sports and now leads both sports and CSR. Actively involved, of course, in running a league when you talk about volleyball and a team as well. And the fact that your focus is to build a sustainable ecosystem. Pleasure to have you here with us, Hannah. Please take a seat. Right? You talk about vision, you talk about commitment, and then you talk about Akhilesh Reddy, chairman of Racing Promotion Private Limited, the promoter of the hugely popular Indian Racing Festival and the Indian Racing League that runs, of course, the single-seater racing, creating a clear pathway for young drivers to move on to global circuits through RPPL, and ventures like Hyderabad Motor Racing Private Limited continues to build infrastructure and opportunities that aim to put India firmly on the motorsport map. Great to have you here, Akhilesh. May I also invite on stage a man who's worn many hats, Suhail Chandhok, the dynamic and a very enterprising young man, presenter, commentator, entrepreneur, administrator, CEO of U Mumbai and co-founder of Elevate India Sport, oversees operations across kabaddi, table tennis, and chess, blending sport with business innovation. Great to have you here, Suhail. And of course, to moderate this panel, I'm going to call upon the captain. I'm going to call upon Suresh Balakrishna, the Chief Revenue Officer, the Hindu Group. Good to have you here with us, Suresh. I always call him captain because he's going to helm the ship and helm this panel discussion. Over to you, big man.
Good morning, everybody, and very gratifying to see that Delhi has actually turned up at 11 a.m. So thank you very much. One of the reasons you have turned up, I think, at 11 a.m. is because of this fantastic panel that I'm have the good luck of moderating. On the subject of moderating, I thought Ayon Sengupta was a good friend of mine till day before yesterday night, when we were sitting with the list of the panelists and who should be the moderator. And he was saying, oh, I'll do this panel, Kala will do this panel, Prashant will do this panel. And then finally he says, you will do Young Turks, New Vision for New India. And I said, and I looked at the panelists and I said, wow. I mean, I have Suhail, I have Akhilesh, and all these wonderful people on the panel. And I said, Ayon, really, really nice of you to give me such a wonderful panel. He said, no, Suresh, I want somebody to balance the panel. I didn't want anybody who was either young or a Turk for the moderating the panel. So thanks, Ayon. So that's how I got to be the moderator of this panel, just the backstory. So thanks, guys, for making the time and coming to this event, to our inaugural PlayCom event. I'd like to start with the lady, if that's okay with you. When I was going through your bio, right, first thing that struck me was, of course, Muthoot Papachan Group, right? Such a large group, finance, FinCorp, real estate, hospitality, automobile dealerships, right? You're in all businesses except sports, right? So while you might be the fourth generation family person, you're the first person to get into sports, really, and become director of sports for the company. So why did you choose to pick up sports to begin with?
I figured I would go first, as always, it's ladies first, but thank you so much, and hello to everyone, and thank you for making it this morning. To tell you a little bit about my journey into sport, I'm very passionate about social entrepreneurship, social impact, and my education, both in undergrad and grad, has been around social entrepreneurship. So when I was dabbling with the idea of coming back into my family business, I was in the financial services and that's where I, learned a lot about what we do at Muthoot too. And um, one thing that kept coming to me is how can I be a part of much of the CSR work that we do, but not from the lens of charity, but from the lens of development, empowerment, and actually making it sustainable. So my passion was very much into translating CSR into CSV, as we call it. And so sport was the perfect ingredient, I would say, for that. Since for the past decade or so, we've been dabbling into sport for both on the for profit side as well as on our CSR side. But I feel that now I'm able to come in and see how we can build a integrated system and look at it more from a business vertical and look at two ways of returns, not just on the financial ROI, but also on the society ROI. So it's a very interesting journey, and I'm very new to sport. And what brought me definitely is the change I can bring about in creating, in the next decade or so, an ecosystem I can be very proud of with with my family, Muthoot. Yeah.
Nice to hear that, Hannah. Um, Akhilesh, you're the poster boy of racing in this country. If you allow me to use that, who's Naren Karthikeyan types. But the fact of the matter is, uh, F1, F3, F4, all the kind of activities that Indian Racing League, A, it's a very expensive sport. B, the government laws, the taxation, etc. It's not the easiest sport to get into in this country, not by a long shot. Right? You don't have it as easy as Sohail does, for example. So the fact of the matter is, why motorsport? Why did you initially get into motorsport at all? I mean, given all the challenges that it has.
Firstly, good morning to everyone, and thank you so much to be here on a weekend. So, the reason I have come into this is I've been always, I mean, like you can say, the madness of motorsports in me, and then I tried my bit to get into this. But in 2019, I found an opportunity to align myself with the passion in one way or the other way, and I've seen the difficulties to get into the sport, and I thought we can work on that. And at the same time, as you mentioned, motorsport is a costly sport. Yes, I do agree it's costly sport, but it's not the costliest sport because these days, which has been cheaper back in the day, has become too costly. You are spending almost more than motorsport per month to get a spot, at least for the state level. I don't want to mention about the sports and all, but at the same time, I personally feel that all the sports are important equally in their line and in their vertical. Every sport is important, and every sport got a reason where it brings the economy to the country, and every sport is unique in its own way.
Yeah, it is unique in its own way, and Sohail also has got into a rather unique sport. It was not, it was very unique when he got into it for sure. Now, because of the popularity of the sport, now everybody knows about it. The Pro Kabaddi League has really made it big, and so on and so forth. But Sohail, I'd like to know your journey. And he's worn many hats. I think Raman introduced him. He's been a commentator. He's done badminton. He's done a whole lot of sports, but he's now almost, shall I say, 80% kabaddi man, right? And he's got
Sure,
this
why not?
and he's got this Yuva Kabaddi grassroots program where he gets. In fact, yesterday he was telling me that almost 112, 114,
Yeah, 112, 114, yeah.
112 athletes from Yuva Kabaddi are now playing in the Pro Kabaddi League. So, which I think is from his grassroots level program. So, okay, why kabaddi? I know you have a sports lineage, know about your dad, etc. You have a sports lineage, but then why kabaddi and why are you getting so deep into it?
I think firstly, let's go to why not motorsport. I wanted to be the cheap son. I think my entire cricket career was the cost of my brother's front right tire in Formula One or something. So I'm glad I could be the cheap son and keep the family afloat in that sense. But look, I think firstly, yeah, being a part of sport helped, right? Having played professional cricket, having seen sport in India from various lenses, and I think being a a sports person, then a broadcaster, having done that now for a long time, you see various aspects of it, right? And I think when Kabaddi came around in 2014, let's say the revolution of Kabaddi came around in 2014, it was kind of a laughing matter at Star back then, and no one put their hand up to want to be involved. And I had just entered the broadcast space, and I said, you know what, here's an opportunity. I didn't even recall how many players particularly were on either side, and I said, we've all played it at some point, but here's an opportunity to make an impact. And you know what? Here's an opening that I could jump into and then make my way into other commentary boxes and other methods. And that's kind of where the punt took place, right? And I think when we got to T minus one, I've got goosebumps talking about it now. I think I remember it, July 26th, 2014, I think it was. And you get to that date and you just felt that we were onto something. You know, I always say there's a few key ingredients for a sporting league. A, stakeholders, the quality of them, and therefore the sustainability of those stakeholders. B, quality of the sport. You know, when you have Indian football at the same time as a United versus Arsenal game, there's a reason why people are watching that perhaps, right? But when you've got the best of the best playing in a sporting league, it counts for a lot. So tick mark there. And three, I think emotion. Kabaddi really tugs at the emotion of every Indian. And I always say there's three generations when you turn up at a Kabaddi stadium. There's the grandparents who played the game. There's the kids today that find it cool again. And then there's the beach mein kebab mein haddi generation. So there's three generations that are turning up to watch Kabaddi, you know. So I think there's an essence about the sport that also then registers because it's pacey, it's short. Every 30 seconds you've got high points. So to me, it then became a no-brainer when you started to see the audience appetite come in to say, why not jump in now? Why not try and professionalize it? Why not create an ecosystem? Because no one else is doing it. So that was the thought back then. I'm glad we've stuck in it. It's not been easy. There's been a lot, and we'll maybe touch upon a few of those things, but I'm
Sure.
glad we stuck in it. Sure.
Akhilesh, while it is, we know there are lots of F1 fans in this country, and you also explained to us why you got into motorsport in a way when you did your introductory remarks. But how did you navigate, the bureaucracy in this system, right? The traditional way of looking at sports. We are a one sport nation. We were till about a few years ago. Even now, I don't think we are completely out of the woods, but still, PlayCom and things like this hopefully will drive that multi-sport thing. But how did you address those challenges of a traditional look at sports? I mean, I'm sure initially people would have said, "In a car racing, I'm sure when you first came in, right?" So, so how did you navigate that?
No, as you rightly mentioned, it's a tough job to convince and to make the bureaucrats or the respected leaders to understand about the motorsport. But then I have to explain them, and I don't know how good the statement would be, but yeah, I've been successful in making the young leaders and the young bureaucrats understand it in an easier way because they have this appetite and they have the wavelength matching. So I do try to explain them the good things that's gonna come because. Um, so before saying that, I would say that all the sports are important. All the sports are equally unique. But the beauty that motorsport got is that motorsport has the potential to create the industrial establishment and also to create a lot of employment towards it. So when you see the European standards now, for example, if you want to buy any supercar, it's going to be a European brand. Why? Because they are into the motorsport. So motorsport is a platform where you get ample of opportunities to do your R&D, to pick the finest thing in the technology. And that's how they develop the cars. And now with that, you get the industrial establishment. You can push your engineers, mechanics, everybody into that, irrespective of the gender, because it's all about the knowledge. And in fact, even if you see now in the big companies, you find on the top notch, let it be the senior technician or a senior R&D head or whoever it is, you'll find more of Indians over there. But we are working over there because we don't have that platform here. So I do try to explain all of these, and then at the same time, the direct and indirect revenue that the state government is going to get. Once you do this as a calendared event, people would know that people might miss it on the first year, but because if it's a calendar event, people will come on the year 2, year 3. So it's going to create the revenue generation through the tourism, and then it also creates a new stand of thought into the youngsters where they see the motorsports growing because there are kids who are interested in engineering rather than driving a car. They want to make a fastest car. They want to work on the engines. So they are interested towards that. So that this sport will give a push to them to concentrate on what they are thinking of and what they are passionate about. And this will definitely raise the standards of the country. And slowly this will turn into the industrialization, and it also increases, it's like good benefiting on both the sides, increase of the employment and increase of the GDP as well.
You try and show them all the positive aspects of this business, right?
Yes.
Especially the younger bureaucrats in the system, right? Which you mentioned.
I mean, like, not just the younger. Luckily, few senior
Okay, I
also have
understand. We
understood
understand.
this.
Hannah, you're in a sense, whether it is your volleyball league or whatever you're doing with football, the academies you have created. You said that you're running you've got an athlete who runs a badminton academy for you. Uh, all done by you and the Muthoot group. Are you partnering with states and other bodies, and how easy is it or difficult it is to navigate that system?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this question when you just asked it as well. But I think I've entered the space of sport also, um, at least right after a lot of the initial fight has been done by my dad, I guess, in terms of at least volleyball, for instance. We've evolved what it is right now that you see as PVL, for instance. It's a privately run league. So I've entered that when now it's in the season 4 up and coming. So I've not really been part of that part of it, and I've not experienced it to be in any way a closed ecosystem. In fact, when I entered it as someone without much experience in sport, because everybody is so passionate in this industry, I felt it the other way. Like people wanted to come in and help as much as possible and see, okay, what are you doing? How can I help you grow? How can I help you develop? Picking up phones all the time. And I would even say with football and our academy in Kerala as well, we've had at most support in terms of the football federation there, and they constantly check in with us, see what we are doing at the grassroots level, and see if we can help their coaches across Kerala. So we're working a lot on the education space when it comes to sport. So the federation is very interested in that, and kind of, we do a lot of knowledge sharing in that sense. So that's Kerala. I haven't explored too much outside of Kerala at the moment, but that's what my experience has been. It's been very, very supportive.
Wow, Hannah has not been scarred uh, by the system, which is fantastic, and I hope it stays that way for as long as it stays.
Me too.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Sorry, Sohail, tell us about.
Which one do you want? Which scar?
Tell us about how's been the overall support from the. I'm talking about external
Yeah.
system, from the
Look,
whole
I
ecosystem.
think we're at a time where, firstly, you have to believe that there's actually space for everyone. And I think everyone needs to start actually working together, because until we do that, I don't think we can actually grow a sporting ecosystem, right? We like to call it at our Yuva Kabaddi series, we call it the copy left policy, where we want to encourage others. If someone else wants to start a youth Kabaddi league, by all means, go out and do it. We're there to support you. You want some of our highlights, we'll give it to you. And I think you think of models outside of India that have worked. It's when you've got the community engaged, it's when you've got the community buying into it, not from a here's a check, I want you to throw a piece of content out there. It's how can you get more people to really truly believe in what you're building? And I think there's a lot of people within the ecosystem, not just in kabaddi, not just in football, and thankfully not in football in Kerala. But I think there's a lot of apprehension of this is mine. I don't want anyone else to come and get a piece of the pie. And I think if we start to work with different stakeholders, there's enough might to come together and actually grow something out which everyone will benefit from long term. You see a lot of franchise leagues sprouting day in and day out, where franchise fees are through the roof. The leagues make money initially, or they try, because I know leagues also cost a lot of money. We know it, he knows it, we all know it. However, the sustainable model is to keep those, as I said earlier, quality stakeholders there over an 8-10 year period. You look at the leagues that have done well, it's because the quality of stakeholders have stayed on. If you want to loot the money early, they're out in year two, and then your league's out in year four, or it's bleeding, right? And I think the key is how can you make it worthwhile for the players, for the ecosystem, for the team owners, and ultimately the money will come because you then build a belief system that we're all in it to build the sport, to do something for the players, and then truly we're looking at sporting culture. I think otherwise we're still in this hero culture where we want to come to a stadium to watch one PV Sindhu or one Saina or one Kashyap, and when a Taizu Ying and a Carolina Marin, world number one, world number two play, there's 100 people there, and that's not appreciation for sport, it's appreciation of heroes. And I think we need to just change that mindset and allow people to keep doing more work and not block those that are actually coming into the system and trying to do good work.
So, taking from what you just said, Sohail, I'll ask you the question: Is there is certain philanthropic aspect to sports as well? I mean, all three. There is a. It's about nation building, character building, culture building. All that comes
You can't look at sport in a P&L. Yeah.
Absolutely. But at the same time, for running a business, you need a P&L as well, right? You need food on the plate next day morning, right? So how do you then do this balance?
So look, I've had the pleasure over the last 2 years of working with someone like Ronnie, and trust me, he is a out and out cutthroat businessman. He looks at it from a P&L. He's not a business conglomerate. He's funding his sports ventures from his own money, and the P&L is what matters. But I think P&L has to be looked at not from a year one, year two prospect, but realistically from a 7 to 10 year lens and with realistic projections. I think it's very easy today for all of us to come in and throw an Excel sheet out there with marvelous projections, and it looks good for a pitch deck. It looks good when you go to investors, but I think when you're going to investors and going to sponsors or going to franchise holders are not the same as investors. And I think a PE fund invests in you for a different reason. A franchise is investing in sport for a different reason. So I think you've got to now be cognizant of the fact that franchise owners have seen enough within the sporting world to know what you're actually going to earn from sponsorship revenue, what you're actually going to earn from media rights, what you're actually going to earn from merchandise, which is next to nothing in our country. So there is a reality that's come into our country now, right? And I think uh, we're no longer where we were 10, 12 years ago. We're very aware of what the real monies are in terms of spend and in terms of earnings. And therefore, as a league, as a sporting entity, as sport, as an ecosystem, we've got to give ourselves a reality check. We all have lofty standards, and I think those lofty standards can come if we grow together to get them. But don't look for those lofty standards now. Get people who want to be a part of those lofty standards so that you're seeing it in that 7 year period. So yeah, keep the P&L at the back of your mind.
So Hannah, are you in the board meeting? Some of the family members saying, "All right, Hannah, fabulous, good that you're getting into sports, but where's the money?" Has that question been asked of you? And how have you tackled that?
Absolutely.
I thought as much.
Absolutely. And I think that's a question even I have to keep asking the team, right? Because for so long, when you have run sport only through the CSR lens, sometimes those questions are never asked. You're only looking at, okay, what are the value you create and things like that, which is very much important. But I'm not even asking the team what is the profit we're able to bring in, but are we able to sustain this? If not, it's very difficult. And I really liked what you said. We can't look at it as a year or two. It needs to be 5 years, 6 years, actually even a decade more than anything else. And I think those two ROIs that I mentioned are very important. I don't think we can look at it as independent things, but as long as all three, that is your finances, your societal, are you able to build a very good brand image within the communities? Are you as a brand, like within volleyball, for instance, this past entire year, we spent with the brand name Kochi Blue Spikers doing activities. And that's not cheap, for sure. But what is the value we create? I think it's a huge value when we enter the season because we have rural academies across Kerala who recognize us, who are excited when we are going into the and more than anything, we're growing the sport. And if that passion is not there to develop the sport, PVL is not going to be interesting a year or two down the line. We want younger players to come in. We want college players and players from our academy to develop and come up as well. So it's really combining all three is a challenge, but if we look at it as if you're able to bring it into a synergy, I think we can have a very good vision to work towards.
I just want to add one thing in terms of societal impact, right? It's an intangible. It's very hard to measure, but I'll give you a small example. In the Yuva series, we work with 26 different state associations. They all send us players at the under 23 level. We divide them into teams that we've given team names to, etc. But we have a rule of two outstation players that can happen. So we had a team from Uttarakhand. Team didn't do very well, but we spotted there was one really bright young talent, right? We moved him. His team got knocked out early. We moved him to the Pondicherry team. Team made the finals. The boy did really well. He went on, and here's a boy who maybe the previous year before he played Yuva was maybe earning 20 to 50,000 rupees a year from playing kabaddi, right? Came through our series, made the final, got spotted by scouts in Pro Kabaddi, earned himself a 78 lakh rupee contract in the Pro Kabaddi auction, went back to his village, had a 2.5 kilometer long procession welcoming him back to his village, and suddenly now in that village there's less drugs, less alcoholism, and people are playing kabaddi. And I think you can't measure, thank you, you can't measure that from a P&L perspective, right? You measure it in societal impact, and you hope that now corporate India will come in and say, you know what, here's ways to engage the community. And this is why I say I think you've got to get a natural, organic buy-in from the community where they feel like they are part of the growth of the sport.
Akhilesh, both of them are saying that if you want to maintain this balance of culture and PNL or societal good and PNL, the roadmap has to be a little long. They're saying you can't measure it in 1 year, you need 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever the roadmap. You think motorsport has that kind of roadmap? It can absorb 3, 4, 5 years more of.
No, no, sure. I mean, like, they are quite aggressive and they have been very ambitious. That's why they said 5 or 6 years. But mentally, the day when I stepped into this, I fixed myself for a decade. And yes, I mean, like, there's even for my, I mean, like, I have myself seen a lot of change in the society because um, one example I can give you is like couple of known people used to take their kids for the karting because they used to brag about it on the weekends, on a Saturday or a Sunday, once in a while. But now I have seen lots of people, they are taking it serious and they are taking the kids on a regular basis and they are trying to push them into the professional side. So which shows difference. And 2 days back when we announced the Goa Street Circuit, so the in year 2022, I clearly remember when we announced the Hyderabad Street Circuit, people were like, "Oh, it's really a good thing, a big thing, which is coming to India, something new." Now I see the comments that this is the third street circuit, they should have designed it better. So the expectations have changed. It means people are following, people are getting there. And in the last weekend, last month, in the second round of IRF, I've met almost around 10 or 15 kids who have come across the globe to see the championship and they are interested to participate in this. Now they are into the senior level karting, but they are interested into this. And even lots of people I have seen in Delhi also, known people, so they are taking quite seriously because 4 years or 5 years back, I don't think people really took motorsport as a serious thing.
So, if there is hope, and all of you all seem to suggest there is hope and that you got to stick in there, your hope will also be reliant on the millennials, on Gen Z, Gen Alpha, whatever they're going to call them, the future of this country, right? Uh, where do you see, because that's going to be your catchment area. You said under 23, and you're looking at those kind of people, right? Volleyball, I'm sure, young badminton. Uh, what are the big trends in these younger generation that you're seeing in sports consumption? How is sports consumption among the youngsters changing in this country that is giving you that hope that you stick in there and it'll happen? Anyway.
Yeah, I I would definitely think that this community engagement is very, very important. I think probably everybody will expect, data, tech, and like digital. And I do believe, of course, that's very important, short content. But I think those answers these experts will know on the audience. But what I've noticed is how can we really start focusing on doing things very differently and not saying, oh, this is not how sport is done in India. So what? Let's try it. And that would mean trying different IPs out within the community. And this year, for instance, we've done coaches education where we're only teaching coaches how to develop kids under the age of 17. So I think those sort of community activities, getting volunteers from the community, getting youngsters to come in and say, we're doing grassroots program, your grassroots league, can they be coaches? Can they be part of it? I think unless that year long activation happens, then Indian youth is still going to look at somewhere out. They don't feel connected to what they're watching on screen. Whereas I think even if you know one person or you've heard from your neighbor, you'll watch that sport online. So I think that community aspect is extremely important, and we can't keep everything online. We need some offline or at least hybrid activations to happen.
Yeah. Hybrid activations, completely agree. That's the way it works. Offline man, obviously, given my age. So I completely agree with that. Akhilesh, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, how is sports consumption changing in this community, in the younger India? Do you see a change happening in sports consumption?
No, there is definitely a lot of change because the younger generation, they are encouraging every sport. They are diversifying themselves. They are not really sticking up like how it used to be. Because when we were kids, all the time for us it's cricket only. That's the only sport. We don't really mind about any other thing. But now they are diversified. Everybody likes every sport. They have their own way of thinking and looking at the things. So it's a good thing.
You see any dramatic changes?
Yeah, I think it's
Not
funny.
only from a kabaddi perspective.
No,
I'm
no.
saying from
Look, I'm here as a multi-sport person. I think kabaddi has become a part of my life, but I think the last, my entire life has been multi-sport. And the big shift I see is that there's a larger disposable income in a large manner in India. B, people are looking for experiences. People are willing to spend on experiences in sport, and I think you've got to give them that. No longer is just a reel going to work for a brand and things like that. I think again comes back to engaging your sports fan. How can you turn a passive sports fan into an invested sports fan? And I think year-long consumption is very important. Keeping a sport in the mindset of a person through the year is important. Look, why is fantasy was let's say why was fantasy so important, right? I think it was important because people had something to play for and understand the sport through its nuances. When I speak to people who build fantasy teams in the UK or even in India, why were they so invested in a league? Because you know what? Hey, I built my team today. What's your team? What's your team? What's your team? Suddenly now I'm plugged into a match. Suddenly now, instead of watching the start and the end of a match and going on Cricket Info and seeing a scorecard, I'm looped in to see who's done a great job through a kabaddi match or a tennis match or something else. And it brings that WhatsApp group together, right? Your WhatsApp group is on fire through your fantasy group as a result. And I think that need for experiences, that touch point, wanting to be at a space where the sport is touching you. And I think taking a street circuit is a great way to do it for motorsport. Taking kabaddi to an apartment complex in a city might be a new way to go about it if we can tweak the sport and make it less physical somewhere. And we're working on something along those lines, right? But think about marketing in sport. And I think for anyone that's here, I would urge you to watch. There's a documentary on Netflix on Vince McMahon. It might sound random. This is the guy who created WWF, right? He's taken a sport, think about it, a sport that was catered initially to drunkards and truck drivers, and changed it to getting kids and women to turn up and watch it. How did he do that? He changed perception and he changed what that sport was about. If he can do that with wrestling, why can't we do it with indigenous sports in India, with the volleyball, with the motorsport, with a kabaddi, and change the narrative? Take it from motorsport being an elite sport to tier 2, tier 3, from kabaddi being a tier 2, tier 3 to a tier 1. It's just about reinvention. And I think it's up to all of us in this room to reinvent sport and take it to people.
Just a question aside, he triggered a thought when he said fantasy about the new law on betting and gaming, etc., which has stopped it overnight, right? Boom, right? Has it affected any of y'all? Did y'all have a lot of sponsors from that category, or do you feel it's the right thing to do? Obviously, there was a lot of logic for it to happen. You must have read the government bill. You know, people betting money that they don't have, committing suicide. So from a perspective, it was the right thing to do. But how has it impacted? Has it impacted at all, or you're fine? There are many other sponsors out there.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have any sponsors in that sense, but I think just on opinion wise, I mean, I have a very close advisor in sport who works very closely with one of these companies, and what he told me is also very similar. You know, there were kids stealing money and doing this, so I can understand in the future if it's more of an ethical way to be conducted. I think it I mean, it's two sides. It's very difficult to come to that one opinion.
Akhilesh, your sense, Tommy?
Well, firstly, I didn't have any sponsor from that category. And secondly, yeah, as she mentioned, it has two sides, but I think, yeah, but the fantasy apps would definitely give a boost to the sports. But at the same time, I think it should be more on the ethical background, and you have to keep some checkpoints on that where it doesn't really affect the younger generation.
I know you have a completely different take, and probably you're going to get beaten up for it. But go ahead.
You're giving me more scars now, new scars to come through. Look, I don't want to sit here and speak about the law itself and the act. I think it's above our pay grade, and it is there is a lot of might behind it for right reasons. But I just want to also talk about the other side of it, right? There is a significant impact that will hit the ecosystem in sport, and I just think uh, I agree. There's a very strong ethical standpoint we have to think about. And there's two sides to it, right? Like you said, it's been an overnight blanket ban, right? So you've got the DAFA bets that become the DAFA bats, and all of these guys completely understand. Has to be washed out, completely cleaned up, etc. There is the other side though, and I think a lot of the Indian sports ecosystem, smaller leagues, the Indian team will always get a replacement for Dream 11, right? Let's be honest. Today, that 350 plus crores that's on the front of jersey will go to another corporate, no doubt. It is the highest profile that you can get as a brand. But think of the lower leagues. Think of a Yuva Kabaddi series. Think of series that have been backed by a Dream Sports Foundation, that have been backed by an MPL that does a lot of work in the grassroots side. There is going to be a significant impact. Look, I think we have to remember that owning a franchise, running a league is also a very expensive affair. We put more than 3,000 bank accounts together for young kabaddi players. We wouldn't have been able to do it unless we had the support of Fanco, Dream 11, and Dream Sports Foundation, right? And I think that might dry up. I'm still looking around to see where I can fill that void from the money that we got from Dream Sports Foundation and Dream 11 from. It's a tough one to do. You think of the smaller leagues, even your TNPLs or your other leagues, where 60-70% of revenues for a team was coming from this category. So I'm not here to talk about the bill and the act. That's for governance. However, I think we need to think about how can we now get corporate India or grants from the government to come in and fill that void. Because if there is a blanket ban, how do you not let it affect the entire sporting ecosystem, especially at a grassroots level when it's non-elite, when we really need the funding to be able to just sustain, to just stay break even, and to be able to give back. We've spent, I'll be honest, more than 20, 25 crores on the kabaddi ecosystem in the last 4 years, or more than that actually, and that would not have been possible if we didn't have support externally. And corporate India is not ready to support a low-profile grassroots sport. When these Yuva Kabaddi players are now in PKL, I'm sure those are people who want to sponsor it. But how can we fill that void is the big question. And look, on the flip side, it's a tough one, right? My mentor in Tamil Nadu, VB Chandrasekhar, I know he had a lot of financial trouble in running a TNPL team. And, it was, he took his life for various reasons, but, there is a dark side to sport and why it's so expensive in the country. And we need, and I think a real call out to governance to be cleaned up, but at the same time, therefore, for corporate India, for the government to now come fill and support sport where it needs to be done at a lower level to then enable the elite to come through as well. So, yeah, slightly different take. Might be grating to some, but I think that is the reality that we see on ground, and it is expensive to keep sport afloat.
Yeah, thanks, Gordon Gecko, for that. I think it was Gordon Gecko who said, right, greed is good. right? So I'm kidding. Uh, uh, the one last question to each one of you before we throw it open to the audiences. Um, you're young, you've invested time, money, effort into sports that are not cricket in this country. So, which means you've taken on a tough challenge for yourselves. And with obviously, where everybody's realized you've done it with your eyes open, right? You know what you're getting into, and you've got into it. So, two questions: where do you see your particular sport, whether you want to talk about volleyball or motorsport or kabaddi, 5 years from now, and where do you ideally want it to be 5 years from now?
I would speak more on Muthoot sport in general rather than just volleyball specifically, because for us at Muthoot sport, the vision is across whichever sport we touch, we follow the one basic principle, that is the three P's. And we say that we want to bring in as many kids at the lowest level of the pyramid. And I know this is how most federations work as well, but as a private company, we feel it's important we do the same thing. And at the bottom, which is participation, getting as many kids, and you're doing such a good job already of it. And for us, whether that is not even specific to a sport, if we can just get kids in an apartment to move, we're going to be happy. And that's, many IPs that we want to create there, the participation level. And then on the performance level, that's the second part of our pyramid. We want to, whichever the kids who are showing a lot of talent, create enough opportunities for them, whether that's in our academies or partner with academies like, we've sent a lot of kids to Inspire Institute, for instance. We've if there is a really good table tennis person, we can connect them to UTT, for instance. So if we have enough of those right partnerships, we believe that even on the performance side, there are enough players in India who will equip them. And on the last, we have our podium, which we're not there yet, but that's what we want to unlock. And hopefully, we'll get there. And our passion is not just in terms of let's get as many people to win medals, but are we able to get everybody, which is coaches, players, referees, whoever it is, up through this channel where they can get to the highest level that they would like to be in sport. And that's one of our biggest thinking is we don't want to focus just on athletes. We want to be across all avenues of sport. And our biggest investment right now is we're building an institution in Kerala where we want to create education and sport under this one institute and create champions across all the entire ecosystem of sports. So that's our 10-year vision now.
Wow, sounds absolutely exciting and on the right path. And may you have all the luck, and may you succeed. Maybe it will be 5 years from now. Why wait 10 years? Hopefully. Uh, Akhilesh, where do you see motorsport 2030 in this country?
Well, for us, since the day one, I had a simple target. At least I want to see another Naren or Karon in the Formula One who has driven in this, and we are already working on that since last 3 years. We are identifying the Indian kids who are really good, and then we are giving them the free seat in the Formula 4. And then, if possible, we are pushing them into the Middle Eastern Formula Regional and then Formula 3. So, we are working on drivers, and also at the same time, we are giving free internship to the engineering students since last 3 years. And this year, I'm going to give employment to at least 5 or 6 engineers in the RPPL itself, where they can regularly work on the cars. So the target for RPPL is in coming 5 to 6 years. I personally want to see at least one Indian kid in the Formula One and one female driver in Formula 2. And at the same time, in next 2 to 3 years, I need a complete Indian team. When I say team, the engineers, data analysts, and the mechanics and everybody, the complete team. Because as of now, in the whole world, if you want to run a motorsport championship, you need the Europeans to come and do it. But then down the line, in 2 to 3 years, my target is to make sure that I send our team across the globe to make the job. So that's the target.
Nice, nice. That's quite an ambition. And same thing. Best of luck to you. I hope it happens. We'll be proud if it happens. Uh, your thoughts on 5 years from now?
I'll split the two hats. From a Mumba perspective, we obviously have a team in UTT, Global Chess League, and Pro Kabaddi. So I think the goal there is to keep getting more elite athletes to go from India to the world, right? I think UTT was a great example. We have so many players inside the top 100 now in the world of table tennis, and a lot of that is because of Vita Dani, Mr. Bajaj, and the work that they've done. The Pro Kabaddi League, I think, needs to unlock its true potential. There's obviously issues in terms of conflict of interest on media rights and things like that, which need to open up. But I think the potential for growth for the sport of kabaddi, we haven't scratched the surface, and I hope that we can see that unlock itself. On the Yuva series, on the Elevate India sports side, I see Megnath is sitting here as well. I think he's done an unbelievable job in Tamil Nadu, and I think this is where the potential lies. We haven't scratched the surface of hitting the true heartland with power with a sport like kabaddi. The regional power of kabaddi is unbelievable. You go to Tamil Nadu or Karnataka or Telangana, Andhra at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, you've got 10,000 people wanting to come into an open stadium and watch kabaddi, right? How can we bring that together, realize the monetary power of that, commercialize it in a professional manner, give players a pathway to sport at the elite level, and give them a sustainable pathway, right? Let them feel secure. As sports people, having been one myself, all you're looking for from sport is security. How can you give them that year-long security to give them enough money to continue to focus on the sport? How can we get support from governments? How can we get support from corporate India? I think what the Muthoot family is doing is fantastic, and we need more people like that to come together with those that are trying to do stuff at the grassroots level to try and push this forward. So for me, the next 10 years, if the ecosystem can come together, all of these stakeholders come together for a sport like kabaddi, for Indian sport as a whole, at the elite to grassroots level, I honestly think we are 1/10 of where we could be in 4 to 5 years if it comes together.
Fabulous. We have time for maybe one question, maybe two, I don't know. One we will take. Time's already up. The gentleman at the back. The gentleman at...
Excuse me, sir.
Hello, hello.
Yeah.
There you are.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm Athira Manoj, assistant professor from PSNA College of Engineering and Technology, Dindigul. So I have a question for you, sir. As Kabaddi is an game which has been originated from Tamil Nadu, ball badminton is also considered as a royal game of Tamil Nadu, which is a racket game played with woolen ball. Okay. So it's also on the rising edge. So you already mentioned that you are focusing on multi-sport. So what is your viewpoint on conducting a combined nationals, which has been permitted by the SDAT to be conducted this month for sub-junior and senior nationals in the ball badminton game? So what is your viewpoint on conducting a combined nationals in India, which will highlight the engagement and recognition of the game globally, and which will highlight the fan engagement? So what is your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, I think if you bring sports together that can come together and you have a kabaddi mat, it's similar dimensions to a badminton court, right? There's ways to engage. Like there's a surf festival that happened in Tamil Nadu recently. I think for me a great opportunity is when we have a Tamil Nadu Kabaddi League, hopefully soon, we combine that with the surf festival, right? You've got an amazing community that you can unlock. Now, let's say you have ball badminton happening on a court that's laid out there. Suddenly you have the audience that have come there to watch kabaddi, who will no doubt now stay on to watch ball badminton, or surfers, who now we have a bronze medalist from Tamil Nadu. Now, this is a way to, to work with multiple
Sure.
sports. So I agree with you. I think Mr. SDAT is sitting here. You should have
Yes,
a lovely
sir.
conversation
Thank you,
with sir. But look, I can't talk about that aspect of it, but I think there's room to grow. And this is what I mean. I think sports can come together, and you should just take what you can from other sports, take the good, climb on top of that, and work together. I think there's scope.
Thank
Sir,
you. Thank you for the answers.
One important question, sir. If you can
Okay,
give
it's
me
the
the
last
opportunity.
question, right? After this, we don't have... And make
Yeah.
the question very brief. Yeah?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, sir. Sir, I'm Dikshit from Hyderabad. Sir, I have a question for Suhail Chandhok, sir. Sir, as he rightly stressed the point regarding immense growth to grow PKL, media rights, and at the fag end of the conversation. So I got a thought regarding conflict of interest because of Mashal Sports and Star Sports being the copyright owners of PKL, because it's a huge conflict of interest. Star Sports themselves own close to 50%, apart from Mashal Sports.
More than 50% actually.
So which immediately draws comparison with IPL. Why IPL is catching steam, accelerating immensely, is because of the very less
Media
or
rights.
conflict of interest. Here being directly conflict of interest, PKL salaries are very not accelerating, I would say. Yes, definitely they are growing. It is close to 1 crore itself, even the highest marquee player. So I would like Chandok sir to stress upon this, and also expansion to more number of cities. Being an indoor sport, it can be easily scaled to more arenas. Right now we are sticking to 4 to 5 with 12 teams, whereas IPL with 10 teams is going to 14 venues.
Understood. One, when you expand to 12 teams, the cost for a team is through the roof. So it has to make sense on the P&L, because it's impossible for a team unless media rights goes up. So it's a chicken and egg. I agree with you. There is a conflict of interest, which is why the media rights, which was at 950 or 905 crores, should have been, by a lot of our team estimates, should have been 2 or 3x of that at least, right? If that happened, it would have allowed us also to spend more to go to other cities. We all ideally want to go to 12 cities. The fact that it's not in Maharashtra as Mumbai, we're very upset about it. But the cost of doing a 10-day event at the NSCI at the Dome is unbelievable. And that already, if we do a 6-day event at the Dome at NSCI, we're in a heavy loss of a season. So there is a problem with, I completely agree, and unfortunately, I can't address that. It's publicly been spoken about, from Abhishek Bachchan to Ronnie Struwala to everyone else, about why that conflict needs to be addressed to unlock the true value of PKL. However, I disagree with you in terms of true value of players. The top player is at more than 2 crores this year. The first player in 2014 was at 12 lakh, the highest paid player. We're seeing a massive 20x exponential growth in terms of player salaries. And this is for 3 months of the year where they're paid. When players start to also show us professionalism for the other 9 months, I think they'll see more growth there. But I don't think players also in Kabaddi yet are ready to invest money in themselves to become full products through the year. What we do over 3 months, we need them to also work hard on through the rest of the year.
Ladies and gentlemen, a fantastic round of applause for my amazing panel, young Turks who have the vision, who have the energy, who have the inclination, and who have the dream of making so many non-cricket sports, which are so important for this country, grow at the speed at which they are pushing them. One more round, ladies and gentlemen, they deserve it.
Well, thank you very much. This was just the perfect start you wanted to a Saturday morning, right? Some young blood, and of course a young captain leading that moderation. I'd request Akhilesh, could you just step back for a moment? Just stay back on stage. We'd like to appreciate and acknowledge your presence here. Suresh sir, could you do the honors and present a small little memento to each one? Hannah, thank you so much for being here this morning. Akhilesh, thanks again for your insights today. And Suhail, as eloquent as ever. Can we have a group photograph, please?